I hope you enjoyed our previous panel discussion. Having worked in retail, telecommunication, and agriculture, I realized that I have been carving my path all along. I also realized that carving your identity, your own avatar, is not an easy job. As women grow and excel, they often are addressed as superwomen, which means a woman of unending resources, self determination, strength, wisdom, and mental stamina. Does this static picture, this idea, accommodate the human within the woman? Every superwoman has her struggles and small misses, which is perfectly normal human tendencies. Looks like we have favored the strong women way too much, and we have forgotten the kind ones, the loud ones, and the ones that bring cookies to the office. Let us now experience another interesting panel discussion on carving my own avatar. I'm not your superwoman. Let us welcome our first speaker, Bedita Burman Krishna, Chief Technical Advisor at KBR. Bedita has 26 years of experience in operation, commissioning, and licensing companies in the oil and gas sector. She is currently the Chief Technical Advisor, KBR Gurgaon, leading the Control Systems Department. She believes in personal drive, energy, and self motivation. She is passionate on leading, developing, engaging, and innovation. Let us welcome our second speaker, Manya Punyani, Director, Digital Experience Studio at Fidelity International. Manya joined Fidelity International in Jan 2020 and comes with rich experience in leading digital business transformations across consumer products and financial services industries. Manya is currently driving the transformation agenda with an objective to deliver best in class customer experience, driving six key shifts. Focusing on customer outcomes, solving business problems, embracing latest technologies, agile and iterative development, cross functional teams, and keeping innovation at the center. Our third speaker for this discussion will be Deepanvati Chakraborty, Regional Director, Corporate Responsibility, Asia Pacific, Cargill. Deepanvita's charter comprises of spearheading Cargill's corporate responsibility and sustainable development practice area for the Asia Pacific region and interventions related to water, sanitation, and hygiene globally. She leads a team of practice area experts that works towards bringing on intersections of food and nutrition security, diversity, equity and inclusion, and sustainability by engaging with key stakeholders, communities, customers, NGO partners, government, industry bodies, academia, multilateral agencies, and advocacy platforms for the key markets of Cargill in Asia Pacific. As an active member of the Will Forum, she advocates for equal opportunities for women at workplace and holds a Will Forum certification for women in boats. This session will be moderated by Anju G. Parvati, Vice President, Research and Solutions, Avtar Group. Anju G. Parvati, a CBSE national topper, is a computer science engineer from BITS Pilani, one of the premier institutes of technical education in India. Research had always been her passion, and in her career spanning 15 years, she has published several papers on women careers and D&I in national and international journals. As Vice President, Research and Solutions at Avtar, Anju, a second career woman herself, has played pivotal roles in several workforce centric studies undertaken in house on career intentionality of Indian professionals, on generational diversity in India, etc. Anju leads a team that works across the length and breadth of DEI metrics for companies to produce strategic insights for corporate India. At Avatar, she also drives corporate India's largest diversity analytics exercise, Avatar and Paramount 100 Best Companies for Women in India study, which completed seven successful editions in India between 2016 and 2022 and is currently in its eighth edition. Over to you, Anju.
A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this panel discussion on carving my own avatar. I am not your superwoman. Carving your identity, your own avatar, is not an easy job. For women, even more so. As women grow and excel, they often are addressed as superwomen. A woman of unending resources, self determination, strength, wisdom, and mental stamina. It is a picture on a pedestal under the spotlight. Does the static picture, this idea, accommodate the human within the woman? Does this picture paint those tired sighs, those bad days, and times when you just can't get out of bed? Every superwoman has her struggles and small misses, perfectly normal human tendencies. We have favored the strong women so much so that we forgot the kind ones, the patient ones, and the ones that bring cookies to the office. Let us hear it from our experts gathered here today on this stellar topic. It's my pleasure to welcome the first speaker for this session, Ms. Bidita Barman Krishna, Chief Technical Advisor, KBR. A very warm welcome to you, Bidita. I
Thank you so
now
much.
I now welcome Ms. Manya Punyani, Director Digital Experience, Fidelity International, to grace this panel. Manya, it's a pleasure to host you again. I am glad to welcome the next speaker on this panel, Ms. Deepanvita Chakrabarti, Regional Director, Corporate Responsibility and Sustainable Development, Asia Pacific, Kargil. Deepanvita, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
My dear delegates, to know more about our speakers, do visit the Speakers Corner in the lobby. With that, and without any further ado, let us get started. So, my first question to all of you: what is your view on this superwoman narrative? Do you think it is something that is achievable or something that should be deemed achievable? Over to you. May I request Bidita to go first?
I think most of us define success in terms of what position an individual has achieved in the corporate or the social hierarchy. In that sense, this narrative is equally applicable to men and women, but sticks conspicuously with women because there are very few of us at that particular position. Even there are, the women prime ministers, or there are very few women prime ministers who have to also prove themselves at their end, and those who make it are still outliers, and the society is trying to come to terms with that by creating labels like this. A perfect there is a sort of expectation from a superwoman, but actually we should not call it a superwoman because that brings us into some niche understanding as the society looks at us. But a superwoman is should not have those sort of tags like perfect work-life balance, benchmarks, too many demands, and too many expectations from the society. So she should be quite comfortable to the position she has, quite comfortable and passionate about the work she does. So that's what I think about uh, a leader, woman leader should be.
Beautiful, Vidita. I loved how you brought about the fact that this need not be a label attached only to women. It's about successful, passionate people, but also ultimately not beating ourselves down in this tryst for perfection, if I may say so.
Yes.
May I now request Manya to share her thoughts on the superwoman narrative?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Anju. So I think when I think of Superwoman, what's the first image that comes to my mind, and what's the image that comes first to your mind? I think the way Indian culture has been, I think the image that comes to my mind is, there is this goddess with 8 arms, doing everything on her own and thinking that, I'm the one holding the world, right? I think that the starting point to even visualize a superwoman like that in itself is a wrong premise to start. We are as human and as normal as men. Yeah. And thinking of ourselves like that start with, that this is the expectation from ourselves, the self expectation, that's the first wrong footing, right? So I think the concept of superwoman is too hyped, but is not practically possible for any human, forget women, for any human in this entire world. Yeah, so the self expectation is the point where we get it wrong. And hence, when we think of ourselves to be that one strong superwoman who is probably visibly doing everything together, but we don't know how burnt she is, and hence everybody around us starts to expect the same. So I think it's a trap, and I don't think it's practically possible.
Great perspective, Manya, and thank you for bringing in that imagery. I think when Women's Day is around the corner, that's an image that we see on a lot of WhatsApp forwards, on many social media platforms, and all that. Incidentally, my own grandmother retired as the chief educational officer in Kerala, and she had 7 children. So I remember a few years back, I sat down with her and I was like, how did you actually do it? 7 children, and times were different, demands on women were different. How did you manage it? How did you manage it all? And she told me very similar things. I didn't do it all. I was the only daughter for my parents, so my parents stood by me, and probably that's how my children grew up. I don't even remember like your generation, those milestones of each kid and all that, but I'm glad that all my 7 children are doing well, and here is my granddaughter who is doing what she is doing. So that was a moment of self discovery for me, Manya. So when you brought out that image, I suddenly remembered my grandmother. Over to you, Deepanvida, for your take on this superwoman narrative.
Thank you. Lovely to listen from Vidita and Manya. And when we talk about, just to pick up from where Manya left, when we talk about Shakti in our country, and we look at Durga with her 10 hands, and somewhere that imagery gets stuck in our head. Now, coming back to superwomen, well, as kids, we knew about Superman, who was a character in the comic books, right? Who's to, wear the outfit in a very different way than normal people would, and fly and do stuff. I wonder where this superwomen narrative came along from. I mean, somebody would have coined it, and I wonder why and what led to that. Haven't done research, to be honest, but that needs to be thought about. When we ask the question why, do we show up as inspirational people? Do we show up as role models wherever we are in life, agnostic of gender? Yes. Do we need to live up to our full potential? We owe it to ourselves as human, and that will be a super thing to do. But this attaching a super women, super food, super computer, super human, super mom, super dad, my question is why? There is enough and more that we have on our plates to do on a daily basis. We have cultural nuances to it, how we have grown up. I can give you my example. I grew up looking at my mom as a working woman. I saw her hustle. I lost my dad at a young age, and she was working way before she got married, and I've always seen her as a woman who would hustle for everything, and I've seen that happening in my own family. And then when my dad was gone, I saw how she took on the role of a dad and a mom, and then a working professional. So many things, and then it gets stuck. They say, by the age of 11, whatever you have seen as a child kind of shapes you up as who you become as an adult, as an individual. And that stuck with me, and I felt that I need to do it all. I need to have all the answers, what have you. And then comes a time in our life when we say, oh, okay, wait a minute, I can fail, I can be vulnerable, and I can always pick myself up, and I deserve a support system. And that's the part of making a choice that all of us have got, and how we discern in making that choice probably makes the big difference. So I honestly don't understand the entire narrative around superwomen and the need for it per se. I think just being human and living up to the full potential of being a human is good enough.
More power to you, Dipanvita. Thank you for that candid sharing, and also navigating our thoughts to what full potential means, which could be very different for every individual, right? And the journey is also going to be very different. And yes, you need those resources, you need those enablers. They're very, very crucial and critical in your pursuit of superhood. So thank you so much. Excuse me. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective, Dipanvita. And while we are on this, let's flip the table and look at the other part of it. What are your thoughts on the burnout associated with this, whoever coined the superwoman syndrome? How can women manage it? How can women probably take precautionary steps so that they don't get to that point of burnout in their pursuits of being superwomen? Manya, can I request for your take on this?
Yeah, I'm just thinking how to quantify the impact. It's so deep that it can actually, lead to longer term consequences. So to start with, right, the impact is physical because you're getting burnt out. The impact is psychological because you're not sure what's your support system, right? It's mental because you're so stressed all the time. Um, and I think to some extent it can be soul burning also, because then you realize that, am I the one who is supposed to take care of everything? And what about the privileges that others have, and why couldn't they support, right? So I think the impact is so deep that by the time women realizes she is already burnt out, aged enough, that it's hard to really, stand for yourself, because then you have your grown-up children who have also seen you doing that, right? And they have also developed that perspective to be right. It's too late, right? So I think it's not an impact on the lady itself. It's an impact on the children who have perceived it to be the natural and the right way. It is an impact to the people around who have assumed it to be right and who have not stood up, because they themselves continue to see it in the right light, right? So, and it's an impact, and eventually it's an impact on the society, because we are letting that happen, and generations to come. So I can't really quantify it. It's so deep rooted.
Wonderful perspective, Manya, there. Yes, I don't think, except for unfortunate medical quantifiers that are there probably on burnout, there isn't a way that we can quantify it. But there is definitely a way to predict and probably work around it to ensure that you don't get to that point. And I think national statistics leads us to that direction. The gender chore gap in Indian households is estimated to be 300 minutes per day, and no prices for guessing. Women spend 352 minutes on cooking, cleaning, and caring, whereas men spend 52 minutes per day. So 352 minus 52 is the figure we are glaring at. So yes, there is a lot that families can do, that our children can do, our other halves can do. Right. So thanks for steering our conversation there. I come over to you, Vidita, for your thoughts around this aspect of burnout and what can we do about it.
Uh, yeah, actually, women, as per se, we have the tendency to, do it all correct, say yes to all, and show that yes, we can do everything. Like we do shifts. Morning we go to office. Evening when we come back home, we do household chores. So the thing is, we have to have that support system if we can. And yes, it is okay that if you cannot do something, we will have something else to do it for me, or someone else to do it for me. For example, you have to, and there should be some, for example, when you're working and you are seeing that you are stressed out, have a long conversation with your superiors, have a good discussion with him, how to come out of it and how to take a break, maybe a prolonged assignment, or if so, how to have a moderate, not a very speedy ladder, and how to be moderate at some point of time. And burning out is real sometimes, especially around the childbirth, which means that you have extra work and extra hard work to do. With those emotional changes, only a woman can feel for lost time to keep up with the male competition. However, once you are back at the work, then you have to cope up with that, and that sort of steadiness and the readiness, of course, should be there if when you come back and you take hold of the situation, and that is some ways that you can avoid this burnout and the stress.
Beautiful, beautiful, Vidita. I picked up two key aspects from what you just brought forth. One is the art of delegation. I think that women often overlook, especially in the personal spaces, and the other seeking out mentors, right? So the aspect of having those conversations with people who are invested in your career. So thank you so much for that. I come over to you, Dipanvita, on your take on how can we manage this burnout? What can be done about it?
I think the first thing that I would say is obviously there is a need for a conducive ecosystem and environment. At the microcosm, it's the family, and then at the macro, the society, the workplace, and so on and so forth. But I also want to allude to the self-awareness piece of it, which is the power of one, the power of the individual themselves, right? And I again go back to power of making the choices. And all of us do not have the ability or probably the privilege of being able to make choices, but those who do, are they doing that? That's the question I'm leaving on the table for everybody to think about. When it comes to a conducive environment, yes, of course, there is a need for a support system, there is a need for empathy, there is a need for respect, and so on and so forth, at the level of the family, at the level of an organization, at the level of the society. At the level of the individual, I want to ask to ourselves the level of guilt that comes along when the perceived role of a fixer and a problem solver, that we think of ourselves as being able to do it all the time at the snap of a hand or at the blink of an eyelid. Is that something that we can manage better? It is important there are people at various spectrums in life. We are people in the corporate environment. There are people who are ladies who are homemakers. There are ladies who are grappling both full-time at home, full-time at work, and the pandemic really threw it out big time for us to see, where the women was playing the role of an entertainer, caregiver, teacher, cook, and then Dalogna coffee was also happening on internet, which she had to live up to, in addition to having everything else and the work, right? And imagine the amount of burden that was happening on the shoulders of an average woman, and some of the one that is induced by the environment needs to be fixed. But I also again want to ask ourselves, how much is it induced by ourselves, and can we at least manage that to begin with? It is okay to not be a fixer all the time. It is okay to ask for help. And it is okay not to wait for an incident to happen where, there has been a health incident, a mental health incident that has happened, or a physical health incident has happened, for one to have that moment of epiphany to say, oh my God, I have a larger purpose of life, meaning, and now and since we're speaking, we have all been there, done that. We're all culprits of it in some way or the other. It's very easy to sit here and say this, but we at some point or the other, we've all been there. And since we are speaking to this audience here, maybe there is a way that could take some of these learnings from us and say, okay, it's all right to take a step back and say, we are all work in progress. How about from going from a go-getter to a go-giver? It has made a massive change in my own life. Or just be a go-getter and a go-giver. There is no or here. From a FOMO, fear of missing out, to JOMO, joy of missing out. Those are the choices we can all make in life. And that I go back to conscious living. And if we are able to make those choices, sometimes the kind of influence that we can create in our nexus in our span of people that we interact with can be massive. I'm a big believer of that. And also, we have a massive amount of IT professionals. We know all about the BPO. I just have a different term for BPO. I call it the best possible outcome. If we keep thinking about it, I know an eternal optimist, but there are possibilities. And I think we all have the deserving way to get into those possibilities for our own well-being. And for me, that's self-love, and we all deserve it.
Beautiful, very, very inspiring, Dipanvita. In fact, the power of choice that you spoke about earlier, the power of one, the aspect of privilege. So many things that I think I did reflect a bit as I listened into you in terms of what we could do by being just more cognizant about all these peace that we have with us, right? So thank you so much for drawing our attention to that. I come back to the table with my next question, which is about finding yourself and what your actual purpose is amidst all the clutter and the hustle that we talked about, right? What is that tip or advice that you would like, Nyan, that you would like to give women who are listening into this session of ours around finding your own path to authenticity? I would request Vidita to go first on this aspect. Over to you, Vidita.
Yeah, this is a very good question. Some women may be happy being a homemaker in traditional sense, whereas this superwoman narrative may drag her to undeservedly in its wake. It's very important that one reflects on what makes her truly happy and truly, pursue a role in that particular field. So one must have a introspective at what she likes to do, what she can do in a credible way, and that is the path she should choose. And once she is choosing that path, she should be passionate about it to pursue it. Authenticity check should be a trigger every now and then to check whether whether the work done by oneself is okay, and is it really making a change of oneself or the surroundings. And it would give a sense of an individual whether she is going to the right path. So I feel that whenever this authenticity check should be done very frequently, and maybe it might be a clutter, but when you are focused on a particular work that you are doing, and you have got the respect for that work, you pursue it with hard work and perseverance. I think that you would be the one who is conspicuous, and would be offset, or a person who is very different from others, and you would be actually being noticed.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Pidita. I think a very important point. And again, we hear many women not having enough time to introspect, to reflect, to think about what they actually want, right? In fact, in 2015, Avtar did a research around career intentionality of Indian professionals. And it was not focused only on women, because we wanted to see if there is any gender gap of sorts. And the research threw up the fact that there was a significant gap when it comes to investing intent towards career progress, specifically around the mid-career stage. So are we to blame? Are women to blame? I was specifically at that stage when we uncovered this particular discovery, and I realized, oh yes, I don't go to as many networking forums as probably my male peers would. I don't probably seek out mentorship or ensure that I do X number of courses on LinkedIn Learning as my male colleagues would, because my son was 3.5, my daughter was 1, there were toddlers at home, there was so much to look after, right? So seeking that path of authenticity, retaining your intentionality is something that I realized is very, very important for our path to authenticity. So thank you so much, Vidita, for that aspect. Over to you, Manya, on your take on how do women get set role on this path of authenticity.
Well, I think to start with, I want to really ease out the pressure that women have to find a purpose by itself, right? But just like every other, thing to be perfect, women think that having a particular purpose defined for yourself and a charter to authenticity towards that is an expectation. Girls, I think that pressure itself is too damaging. But I do think that we all need to have a clarity of what brings joy to us. Secondly, we need to invest a lot in ourselves, right? Now we need to keep upskilling ourselves, cross-skilling ourselves, continue to read a lot, right? Continue to get knowledgeable every day, right? So that's what we can do. It is in our hands, isn't it? So continuing to invest in ourselves. The other thing that I totally believe in, which I practice myself, is experimentation, right? We all need to continue to experiment in various paths. We will fail in few, but that will tell us what not to go with very clearly, right? And you will not regret later that why didn't you try or pursue that. So experimentation, failure is a journey of joy, and we should continue to do that. It's okay to come back and get off the second route and the third route, to continue to experiment on various paths till the time you think that this is the place where I am having joy, I'm having happiness, I am having satisfaction, where it is career satisfaction, job satisfaction. So whatever is where is a point where you feel happy about it, you should continue to do that. While on the go, I think there, as a woman there, and as a human being, few things that I do think are cannot be compromised while experimentation and investment is the key. I think is your own integrity and ethics. So as long as one is able to pursue on the path where you feel that you're doing it the right way, your intention is the right, and you're humanly you are empathetic towards others, and you are giving a chance yourself to fail as well as succeed, I think everybody will get to a point where they think they've tried enough and feel satisfied about it, and success is just a byproduct, it just happens. So that's my belief.
Thank you, Manya. Oh, I'm loving this panel. It sounds like a very poetic panel. There are so many, rhythmic things that I hear from all of you, and very, very important points as well, right? That easing of pressure while you kind of invest on yourself. I think that's a great learning. I'm going to absorb myself. Thank you, Manya, for that. I come back to you, Dipanvita, with this. Pursuit of authenticity. What is your take on it? How do you think women can calibrate? I think Manya also talked about the trial and error, the experimentation aspect of it, right? So, how can women further make that journey more purposeful? Over to you, Dipanvita.
Absolutely. I'll just take on from Manya's point about experimenting and doing it with authenticity, integrity, ethics, all of that, and just sum it up and say, okay, we all can do our best and take some rest. I think I know it's again going into that poetic domain or whatsoever. I think we all owe it to ourselves. The pursuit of success, that we and success again, it could be a sports person, it could be someone in the corporate world, it could be someone in the entertainment space, someone who's a homemaker, a mom. Success is defined so differently, and ultimately it's in the pursuit of happiness that you want to be successful, right? Why do you want to be successful? Because it makes you happy at the end of the day, and it's probably agnostic again of gender. It has that probably a very uniform lens that everybody wants to be happy, and all of us owe it to ourselves to be happy. Now the how part of it, I think is what we're trying to unpack here. And absolutely, like Vidita and Manya mentioned about the investment in your own self, and thinking about, I think the most important investment is time, because we are always complaining about not having enough time. We have enough on our plate, and therefore there are should do's and must do's So in our pursuit of excellence, can we prioritize? And I think in our, I mean, we know it in our work. We do it with our teams all the time. When we strategize, when we create our annual plans, quarterly plans, we are always strategizing on what is the most important thing that we are going after. There are always must do's and there are always should do's. Can we prioritize the must do's, and should do's can keep happening? And then where again the support system is very important. Even as leaders in businesses, we can't do it all. We need our team. That's why we need high performing teams, and that's what the definition of a leader is. That is what compassionate leadership is all about, where you are having a team of folks who are probably more intelligent than you sometimes, and that's what makes it worth the while, right? The other thing, at a very personal, individual standpoint, I'd say, I think it's there is a concept by the author Robin Sharma, the famous bestseller author of The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. He talks about something very interesting. He calls it HOP, HOP, which stands for hour of power. Yeah. So if one can find that hour of power, it's best done. And personally, it works for me early in the morning to have that hour of power. But it might, sometimes you might not have the liberty to do that. To find that time to do something that brings you joy. It could be working out, it could be doing meditation, it could be reading, it could be listening to a podcast, it could be talking to a friend of yours, talking to your mom, or just sitting still and looking out of the window at the birds chirping. Anything whatsoever that makes you feel like yourself and brings your focus back to life. I think those are little conduits and nuggets that if we become conscious, again, I know I keep repeating the consciousness of humans. If we keep going back to that has its own power, and I have felt it myself, and therefore I say it with a lot of confidence that if not hop, can you take out 30 minutes to begin with, or maybe 20 minutes to begin with, and then gradually increase that to say, this is my investment in myself, and I am not negotiating. My family, okay, get in line. This is and eventually people do. 28 days it takes, right, for people to register and get into a habit. I love this book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. I would strongly recommend folks to read that. It takes that much of time. I think, again, it's some of the choices that we make in life can be a great pathway to bring our full self to work, family. And then when some days we can't, we just put our hands up and say, oh, no, we can't. Today is not a good day.
Absolutely. Very, very inspiring again, Dipanvita. I loved the poetic, thing that you began with, and then we segued into another acronym. In fact, in Avtar, we keep saying we love acronyms. We create acronyms for almost every solution that we have. But I guess we have here a set of very, very inspiring panelists who are giving us more acronyms to remember, more tips that we can use to invest on ourselves. So thank you so much for that. So now I come back and I take us all to another direction, right? In this, we talked a lot about what women can do, what probably societies, their families, their support systems can do. When it comes to probably diminishing this narrative or making it less, that pressure that we talked about being superwoman, and kind of ensuring that there is equity, there is inclusion, there is that spirit of belongingness. What do you think your organizations are already doing? What can be done beyond, what is being done today? So can I request Manya to go first on this?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very important point, right? The way I think the organizations were dealing with the subject 5 to 7 years back, and the way they're dealing with today, they have come a long way, right? Diversity and inclusion is one of the biggest focus areas for the organization, majority of the organizations today, right? So the gap has started to bridge, but are we done? Not yet, right? So there's a journey ahead. And I think organizations approach towards it, and I can obviously speak on behalf of Fidelity, that it is one of the biggest drivers today of how we are making our policies, all, in our decisions being made. Us being present in the event today, it's in itself is speaking volumes of our intent to try to bridge the gap of, the gender hiring, right? Also, there's a lot of focus on this pay parity, right? Compensation. We have seen in the past there has been, some evidences of that being an issue which organizations today are focusing on. And if not, they definitely plans to focus on that front. Hiring, I talked about already. Apart from that, I think many organizations are building some more policies around empowering women to play a better role. Now, that's one angle to it. The other angle to it is, are you enabling men to support women in that journey, right? So we can continue to enable women, but how do we enable the ecosystem? And just one evidence of what Fidelity has recently done is that maternity leave is 6 months for women, so that they can take care of the children, newborns. But in Fidelity, we have announced paternity leave also to be 6 months. Now, how that enables is that dads, you got to be there, with the new mom and your child, and 6 months of paid leave to support your family. Now that's enablement in a true sense, right? So that's a policy we launched last year. So things like that, we need to be really creative, and in ways we can do that. There can also be a lot of sharing that organizations today can do in different platforms, through social media, through LinkedIn, on announcing such things, so that organizations can inspire other organizations to get into that same line of thought process. So yeah, I think organizations, if they start thinking like that, there's a lot of load they take away from women's shoulders. Just respecting the fact that if they're home, that they are available all the time. Assuming that may not be true because of other things like that. Also respecting timelines, of the job hours, and respecting that evenings may not be available. So just a respect towards them being human and not superwoman is the key there.
A wonderful take on how we can define equity, Manya, right? Respect for differential needs, as I see it. So, and a very important aspect that you brought out was also about allyship. So, in fact, Avtar and Seramount's Best Companies study, the 100 Best Companies for Women in India study. So, we launched it in 2016. This year is the 8th run of the study. And what we realized was the specific aspect of paternity leave. So, in spite of the country not having a mandate around paid paternity leave, we have consistently seen more and more companies offering it. Today, last year, 99 of all the 100 companies that emerged winners offered paid paternity leave. But the average has moved up from just 5 days in 2016 to today it is 18 days. And the top 10 companies, the average is 25 days. And the best in class is, of course, as you mentioned, 26 weeks. So equal parental leave. So that's a very inspiring point that you brought out, I think, which is also about dividing this aspect of superhuman syndrome, right? So not looking at only women to be responsible for everything. Very beautifully put. Thanks for that, Manya. Over to you, Vidita, on what are some of the organizational initiatives that you have seen work towards enabling women's careers?
Yeah, KBR started this initiation and this mission long back, and they have actually proving it to happen. So KBR's global community is dedicated to promoting and strengthening inclusion and diversity culture. That is, advancing women leaders, be it individual with disabilities, allies with employees with LGBTQ, and so on and so forth, and of course honoring veterans. But specifically for women, they have actually this hiring process, and we have already gone up to 30%, and maybe we will be in course of time going to be about 50-50. So that's what the trend is in KBR. And our mission, of course, is to have a women, the leadership. We have to see women in the leadership role, where we have we also generate a sort of atmosphere where women are encouraged, women are pushed, and women thoughts are being looked into, listened to, and give a support to them, so that they can nurture themselves. And KBR is such an institution, I would say, that they give a lot of freedom to have to put forward your creative ideas and different challenges in front of you without intervening much from the leadership. So you become a powerful, you have a great space in front of you to prove yourself. And that is all, of course. And another thing is the mentorship they are also providing, like the leadership also, they are getting some of the female employees under them, and intermittently they converse with them, they discuss with them, they understand what is their outlook. And with such initiatives and with such environment, I think KBR is going to get great, and we will have women leaders in KBR in a very little time.
Excellent, excellent, Vidita. So you touched upon not only the path, but also the outcome. So ultimately, it's also about seeing women out there. I'm sure all of us must have been inspired by women whom we saw as young girls, women whom we thought were our role models, right? So thank you so much for sharing that perspective. I come over to you now, Dipanvita, on your take on what your organization is doing and what more can be done in this journey of enabling women's careers.
Yes, thank you, Anju. So, Cargill is a food and agriculture organization. Again, with a massive footprint, we have a very diverse set of businesses. We have a diverse footprint across the globe, about 70 countries, 150,000 people. And gender parity is a very important conversation, and it has also emerged as a very important conversation for us, I would say, over the last decade. And something that we did back in 2016 at a global level at Cargill was to be a signatory to the paradigm for parity. We signed on to that, which means that we have made a pledge to have 50% women in leadership roles by the year 2030, and we are very well on our way in doing so. We have certain geographies like India, we have geographies like Indonesia, where this work around gender parity requires a laser sharp focus, a little bit more than some other geographies, just because of the ecosystem and the environment. And we have taken some measures to look at that. And it is, again, a global work, and diversity, equity, and inclusion is integrated into the business strategy now. And it has been a great development in the last 5 to 6 years as well here. Because of the diversity of the business footprint that we have women working in factories, we have women working in sales, we have women working in marketing, finance, IT. So the spectrum is massive, and we have put some focus on certain areas to begin with, specifically the areas where there are challenges to get women in the workforce. So there are measures being taken with the talent acquisition work that we do to have more women to work in IT, finance, and sales. And when we talk about that, sales and in operations, that means that we also have to create a conducive infrastructure for women to come to work. So there are layered way that we have taken this approach. And the other aspect that I will take a bit of time to focus on is something that we have in our company called a business resource group. We have business resource group of Cargill Women's Network, we have Young Professionals Network, we have a Pride Network, we have Ebony and Ivory. That there are various business resource groups, and they exist to provide support create that enabling environment for example, for the Kargil Women's Network, to create an enabling environment for women in the organization, take the learnings, take some of the pains and agonies that women go through to the larger organization to create changes in the policies and have a continuous conversation. It's a very safe space for women to come in and have that conversation. And just to give you a little bit of a snippet of it, during the pandemic, we realized that women were not going out of our women colleagues. They were not going out of the house. They didn't have, a lot of them, had this family responsibility. They didn't even have a way to socialize. And we took that as a huge sort of an indicator of what it was doing to people's mental health. And we coined something called an inner circle. And it was just something that was put together as a platform for women to come together once in a month to have a free flow discussion.
Wonderful.
Talk about what is worrying them, anything that we could help. And some of us in the leadership team were part of that conversation. We are the one who are convening those, and it has followed a journey. It is still there. And now it has elevated to a place where the conversation is about, okay, how are we creating opportunities of growth? How are we creating opportunities for leadership pipeline through the talent pipeline for getting to that goal of 50% women in leadership, etc. So those have been some of the initiatives. Long way to go. We are a food and agriculture company, and getting women to work in this space sometimes can be a huge opportunity space and a challenge. But we are well on our way with a lot that we have to still do on our path forward.
Wonderful, Dipanvita. I think the response to this last question has been a little masterclass in what organizations do and what can be done. So thank you so much for that. With that, we draw to the close of this discussion. I request you to give a short 30-second closing remark to all beautiful women, wonderful women gathered here today at this job fair on what they can do to be more inspired by themselves. Over to you. Yes, Dipanvita, you can go first.
Okay.
I see you smiling, so yes.
Yeah, I just want to say more power to all the wonderful women out there. You're beautiful as you are. You are great as you are, and just embrace that vulnerability. Be vulnerable. There is great strength in being vulnerable because it brings the authentic side of all of us, and it also helps us to find peers, mentors, sponsors, support groups, friends. Who would have similar stories to share, and it's a great way to follow our purpose in life together.
Thank you, Dipanvita. Manya and Vidita.
Yeah, okay, I can go. So I think, ladies, value yourself. You are the best version of yourself, the way you exactly are. You can't make everybody happy, so make yourself happy. That's the first thing to do. And ask for what you deserve, and you deserve a lot. So always never shy away from asking what you need and what you deserve.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Over to you, Vidita.
Women has a great capability. She has got the strength, the adaptability, the ability to create women empowered workplaces, perseverance and passion to do any work, and she's inclusive, understands, she listens. So we have got great qualities to bring about a change. So we all being to a certain leadership positions, we can do great changes in the society, be it the workplace, be it in our home, be it in the surroundings. So we stand great, and we are going great towards the empowerment of women.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Manya. Thank you, Vidita. Thank you, Dipanvita, for sharing your thoughts on this very, very inspiring panel. It's been a lovely discussion. So best wishes to all our delegates out here today. Hope you find your paths to purpose and inspiration today. Have a great weekend, everyone. Here is Anju signing off. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.